So our next presentation is Dr. John Guo, and he's here to talk to us about digital interventions to mitigate misinformation on social media.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here today. About a century ago, there was this English philosopher who claimed that it is undesirable to believe a proposition when there is no ground whatever for supposing it true. Now, seemingly trite and obvious, but this statement touches upon one of the most fundamental principles in our belief system, which is under a lot of pressure these days because of the proliferation of misinformation on the internet and social media specifically. Now, a proposition can be as simple as a marketing slogan or a sophisticated misinformation campaign running on the internet. So what are the existing methods that we use to battle with these challenges? To your left is what we call interstitial warning. This is how it works. It puts an opaque cover over the social media page, forcing the viewers to be exposed to the warning content before they proceed to seeing the actual social media materials. Now, although effective, it also generates a very negative feeling among the users because they don't particularly enjoy their browsing experience to be interrupted. So at the end of the process, they will abandon both the warning and the social media content altogether, just like throwing out the baby and the bathwater together. And the second type of warning is what TikTok is using right now. It's called contextual warning. As you can see at the bottom of the displayed material, there's a banner that says, well, you might want to be careful reading this because it's disputable. The biggest problem, people just don't pay attention to it. Now, Instagram does a little bit better job because they were using more vivid color, like the red, and bigger font. Well, still, it falls under the victim of being ignored. Therefore, a task force was born to cope with the challenge, consisting of 3 professors from different disciplines: John Guo from College Business, Nan Zheng from Journalism, and Chen Guo from Interactive Design, with one common goal. We're trying to design the next generation misinformation warning mechanism. So our process is rather fluid. Actually, we have done some preliminary works. For example, we have conducted an experiment on campus, inviting 28 individuals to participate in our experiment, consisting of 20 undergraduate students, 1 graduate student, and 7 early stage professionals. And we used 4 methods together. We started with interview, trying to obtain understandings as to what kind of a knowledge these individuals have pertaining to misinformation concept or social media use in general. We also use a device called eye tracking tracker. What it does is to capture all the eye gaze movement the participant is having on the computer screen so as to keep track of the person's corresponding behavior. And then in the meantime, we will invite them to speak out loud when they were browsing the social media content, including the warning, so that we can gather data relating to what they were thinking at that point of time. And afterwards, we're going to conduct a debrief with 2 purposes. First, we want to make sure the participants are aware of what they have gone through. And second, more importantly, we want to make sure these individuals are not getting any harms because after all, there is some misinformation exposure in the process. And we're working with a university called IRB, an organization, again, making sure we're following the protocols and these students or subjects will not receive any harm due to the experiment. Some of our early findings as such. Now, about 61% of the participants completely failed to notice the warning. Now, those blue balloons you see on the screen, the bigger they are, the longer the time the participant has paid attention to that area on the graphic. As you can see, there's no balloon whatsoever at the bottom layer where the warning message is located. Now, the second group is a little interesting. Now, as you can see, they have paid attention to the bottom part. With smaller balloons, what that means is they just tangentially looked at that area and just moved away. Now, that triggered a very interesting phenomenon. We call it ignore the warning, but remain vigilant. So how do we know they're remaining vigilant? Because we asked them for it. Because remember, in the meantime, they think out loud. So as an experimenter, we are aware that they have raised the flag in their head, thinking, the stuff may be a little disputable. But then again, because of the time they spend on that area is so short and they didn't do anything about it, so we still categorize that response into the bucket of ignore the warning. But then again, they remain vigilant to some extent. The last group, the third group, is the ideal group. Namely, these are the people who actually paid attention to the warning message and do something about it. Namely, for example, they click on the warning message to understand why. So this is the equipment, the eye tracker device we're using right now in our lab. As you can see, it's pretty bulky, right under beneath the LCD. There are two major limitations. First, you don't see people carrying that monitor around when they're browsing internet. They always use gadgets, so we need something more portable to track their eye-gazing data. And second, it doesn't generate rich data as we want it to, because we need multi-channel data that will allow us to reveal more insights. So our study continues, starting with this particular relationship that we are interested in. Repeated exposure leads to habituation. Repeated exposure simply means the same warning design has been projected on the users over and over again. So the person is exposed to the same warning content, message, mechanism as he or she was browsing through the internet materials over and over again. That tend to lead to what we call habituation. What that means is the person will become somehow mentally numb, so they will stop reacting to the external warning as a result of numbness, or they just psychologically or cognitively stop responding to these stimulus. Now remember, when I was a little kid, I always visit my grandma in the summer. On first day, when I enter the house, I can smell that pleasant cooking aroma that permeates through the environment. But after spending 3-4 days there, I stopped smelling it, which means my sensory functions have been adapted to the environment, which is closely related to habituation, but slightly different, because habituation is more about psychological manifestation and behaviors. So our research questions have two parts. First, we want to know, how does habituation affect the likelihood the user will believe what they see on the internet or social media? And can we elicit any positive attributes or beneficial effects from the habituation behavior so as to inform our next generation misinformation warning design? Our deliverable is very tangible and conspicuous, which consists of an array of new designs as to warning messages. Now, and the purpose of the deliverables is also very straightforward, because we're trying to inform users as to how they can elicit more information pertaining to the materials they have run into on the internet, as to whether it is true or not true. And it is important for us to state that we do not want to take over the driver's seat and tell the users whether or not these materials are true. We'll simply leave that to maybe a third-party fact checker or a neutral party data validation service. We're simply trying to create a conduit, a information or communication channel, allowing the users to have the freedom to make the decision based on the informed stream of data. Now, how do we test? How do we know if our design is actually going to work? Well, we use experiments, a more robust one. For example, step 1, we're going to collect 36 false videos. Step 2, we'll collect 36 true videos. And step 3, we're going to assign these videos along with our prototype new warning designs, and try to see the users how they react to them. And step 4 is critical because again, there's a critical challenge when it comes to running experiment in lab, because some conditions were controlled for, which are not necessarily true in the realistic environment. Namely, we want to bridge the gap between the lab environment and the actual real-world situation so as to maximize the significance or implications that we have generated from a lab environment, so that we can immediately apply what we learned to the real-world situations. So we need to upgrade our weaponry in order to do that, starting with a mobile, portable eye gaze movement, so that user to your left can wear the eye goggle everywhere they go. They can whip out their cell phone and start tweeting or checking out TikTok updates on the go. In the meantime, the data of their eye gaze movement will be wirelessly transmitted to the researcher's computer with, as you can see, multi-channel data feed, not just single or double channel. And we would like to upgrade our EEG equipment. Namely, not only we are interested in their eye gaze movement, but also in the meantime, how does their brain operate as to the browsing activities? So we want to tap into their neural network activities so that we can reveal insights that was really hidden deep in their biological mechanisms, so as to, again, solidify our findings with more vivid and concrete evidence. Our baseline budget is $25,000 to acquire the EEG equipment and the associated research software. We also need to hire student participants to conduct experiments, collect data, analyze data, etc. Now, if we have the luxury of another $16,000 or so, we can upgrade the mobile eye tracker with the corresponding software support, as well as hiring our students in the process. It is a completely open and multi-constituous endeavor in the sense that not only we, the researchers, are from different disciplines, students are from different disciplines. The students can learn about the subject matter as to media literacy, journalism, cybersecurity, privacy, and media design, but also they actually participate in a sophisticated and legitimate research process so that they can leverage that experience for their future responsibilities once they become fully fledged professionals. Our contributions are interdisciplinary, they are unique. We're about to unveil something that has never been done before. And as a matter of fact, I presented the early findings last October in Denver in front of a group of global leading cybersecurity researchers. And they all came to me after the presentation and say, this is one of the kind of research, and you should absolutely pursue this route. And of course, it's not just about the academics. We also have a very tangible outcome relating to practical implications, so that the programmers, the graphic designers, and the customer engineers from social media entities or other companies can leverage these designs immediately to their ongoing responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. One is, how long, the software, is that licensed for only a certain amount of time? Where you had the software, where you have software on the proposal? Are there limitations to the license?
We have spoken with several vendors, and the answers vary. And the ones that we're getting close to is about annual based. Is that true? The license.
Let me actually correct my colleague here. I'm Nan. So basically, we consulted multi-vendors to acquire this equipment and software. I think the one that we think are offering us a more practical plan, they're going to give us a license for 3 years for a particular software. But when we asked that further question, we said, is that 3 years per equipment? They said yes. So if we maybe in the future requires more equipment, we'll have to buy the software again. But it's per equipment for 3 years.
And my second question was going to be, how many pieces of equipment then is it that this funding would cover? Or
I think with our basic budget that they're asking for, I think it only would qualify us to buy like probably 1 pairs of eye tracker and EEG equipment. So that's just, it tells the story. It's just how advanced equipment could be expensive in that way. So.
Thank you.
So we'll be happy to start with one and gradually.
Awesome, thank you.
How many people do you expect in the sample size? So you did 28 in this initial pilot. Like how many would be your ideal number of people to be in the program?
The more the merrier. That's the perfect answer, but it depends on our budget. 30 will be the ballpark estimate I can come off right now. But like I said, two things. Actually, not only just the sample size, but also the constituents, namely, who are these people? We would like to diversify the background of the individuals who participate so that we want to generalize our findings to a wider audience. So 30 is off the top of my head number. As a startup, if we have more money, we'll definitely increase more.
Who determines if it's fake news or not?
That's a good question. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Actually, the answer is not us. So it's for short answer. But actually what we're going to do when we say we're going to collect 38 false videos, we're actually going to look at the third-party fact checkers, such as, for example, PolitiFact, and also, for example, Associated Press. So we're going to find misinformation videos that has already been identified by a major news organization or a third-party fact checker. So we're not going to determine what is fake or what is real ourselves. No.
So if you determine that that this is useful in the public market, who owns this, and can you resell it into the future?
We could resell it in pertaining to the context. Are you talking, for example, for the public service? That could be, those kind of things. But if we're looking at, say, for example, when we look at academia circles, just for example, when it comes to these data, whether or not they're veracious or not, we can run something similar, pivot that product to that into that direction.
I'm thinking like marketing companies, media companies would want to know this stuff, and they would probably pay a lot of money for this.
Just like the VeriSign for Amazon and eBay.
Yes.
Yes.
We hope so.
We definitely will love to see that transpire.
So along the same lines, so taking that same methodology, but not for warning, but for just general advertising, have you thought about turning this towards the advertising markets to say, here's what really catches people's attention properly? Because warnings are one thing that's one specific use. It seems like you have a much bigger population of uses you could put this towards. So have you looked at any of those other ones? That's question number one.
We have, yeah.
Actually, the theory that we talked about, the habituation, is actually a theory I believe originated from the cybersecurity field. So basically, I think one of the implications that I can think of on top of my mind is that not just misinformation warnings, but any type of, for example, computer virus warnings or any type of warnings, I think our research would be able to inform the design of that for social media, especially for social media platform, but we could also generate it to a broader perspective. I don't think I have seen research of habituation in the advertising, like scholarly field, but I think that's definitely is a possibility to look into that area. It's basically the knowledge that we created can be, I believe, generated to different.
Could
Yeah.
be leveraged towards general advertising. So second question for you. My daughter is in the SMAD program. She has taken me shopping for equipment before. What I found is that the one she wants is price level here. The one that does 95% of what she wants is about half the price. When we're looking at different pieces of equipment, where are you on when you're looking at your equipment? Are you going for the real high end, or is there something that from a budget perspective is much more palatable from a budget perspective, but gives you almost everything you want, or
Yes, it's a gradation system we looked at when it comes to. We have to spoke with a couple other companies whose price range just bizarre in my opinion. So we don't consider them. There was an Austrian company who actually demonstrated their product in my office, but it's decided to not to go with that route because its price is too intimidating. So this one, the one that we quoted, is in the middle range. There's some low budget, but I kind of doubt that the functionality is going to deliver what we want. So we want to play safe in that regard as well.
All right, it's unfun time, but we've got to hook them.
Okay.
So thank you all.
Thank you.